Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to everyone who is joining us today for this another Lunch and Learn. Welcome in, and thank you so much for joining us. It is still time for you to invite someone in to let them know that we're lunching and learning today. And if you have your cup of tea, your cup of coffee, even if you have a bottle of water, that's still good. Come in and join us for this, our lunch and learn. This is where we are each Friday at this time, 1 p.m. Eastern. It is where we have those conversations. It is where we learn and it is where we grow. Welcome again to everyone who is joining us. My name is Dr. Janice Brooks. I am a leadership consultant and coach with the John Maxwell certified team. I'm also a life strategist, a mentor, and a temperament counselor. I shift mindsets and help individuals and organizations who are customer centric to lead with purpose and to ensure that they meet their goals. With me today is Dr. Siegfried Howell and Dr. Marcia Powell, my two other co-hosts, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves to the audience before we go any further.
Hi, my name is Dr. Siegfried Howell, and I am a relationship coach. I help single people as well as married people get synergy, get their mindset shifted so that they can achieve the level of happiness with their significant other, prospective other, or their significant other in life. I also help businesses achieve synergy because businesses operate on relationships. And I help people, families, and everyone just get a better perspective of life and happiness.
Excellent. Dr. Marcia.
Oh, hi everyone. It's nice to have you lunching and learning with us today. My name is Dr. Marcia Thomas, and I am a certified leadership empowerment coach. I specialize in empowering and supporting leaders in their careers or in their professional spaces to remain relevant, resilient, and faith-fueled as they integrate their faith to become exemplary and to become very exceptional in what they do. I also work with teams as we build them so that they can be transformed into cohesive units that maximize production and also make a greater impact with the brand of that organization. I do one-on-one coaching and I also do group coaching and I do motivational speaking and I also do training. That's it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Marcia and Dr. Howell. And together we work as a team and we also have our individual practices. Today, we are on a very crucial topic. We are talking about the furnace of personal development in 2024. And many persons, when they hear the word furnace, they will think of the fire, heat. And yes, that's what we're talking about. Because personal development can definitely feel like a furnace. Yet, when you think about it, it is really not possible to create gold without it being passed through the furnace. And many people will go about seeking quick solutions and they might seek for one size fit all advice to overcome their challenges and to develop. They will sometimes go to seminars and they will read tons of books. And many times they come out still unfulfilled. Why? Because they are not able to undergo the furnace, the real furnace of personal development. And the other thing that happens sometimes is that people find themselves in what I call the moment effect. The moment effect. And this moment effect, I'm not sure if anyone know what I'm talking about, but this moment effect is the moment when you make your resolution, when you make a decision, when you vow to do something different, to better yourself, to develop yourself personally. and then that moment passes and everything go back, the decision wears off and everything go back to point one. But I want to use this verse today, and it says, I know the plans I have for you, saith the Lord. Plans to prosper you, plans to give you hope and a bright future. When God started the earth, he told man to be fruitful and to multiply. And therefore, he expects us to develop, to be fruitful, to multiply, and to help others to do the same. And that's why we are here today, talking about the furnace of personal development. Dr. Marcy, I'm coming over to you. When we talk about this furnace of personal development, what comes to your mind?
Well, it means for me that you are really on a journey of self-discovery. And that on this journey, there are twists and turns on that path. And these twists and turns, sometimes we call them challenges, we call them setbacks, we call them disappointments, we call them distress. But in that wonderful mix of growing and finding yourself and being authentic and practical in knowing what you are about, in achieving your goals, in setting your action plan for yourself, in carrying out your life script, you will have a mixture of all these things. And it is through this pruning and through this pulling together that at the end of it, you can now know who you are and what it is that you are about, what your purpose is, and how you can begin to navigate those challenges, setbacks, joys, and sorrows to become your best self. That's really how I see the furnace of personal development. It is your testing and pruning period. What you actually are is what you are becoming.
Wow. Thank you so much. Dr. Howell, you better add to that.
Yes. When I first got to college here in America, I got a job at Walmart, and Walmart had a competitor called Kmart, and they were equally as big, and they sold just about the same thing. But there was one thing that set Walmart aside and apart from Kmart. One of the things that they told us when we came to a manager and say, hey, I have a problem, they're like, no, you have an opportunity. And so they saw problems as opportunities. And basically, they were shifting our mindset to see adversity, to see trials and tribulations as an opportunity to create something positive. And that stuck with me over all the years. And when you look at stories like Moses was a prince, but he had to be a shepherd for 40 years in order to grow and develop how he needed before he could become great. If you look at Joseph had the vision of how his life was going to go, but he had to go to prison and he had to be a slave before he could get to the second highest command position in Egypt. And then when you look at Paul had to be blinded. He had to be humbled. He was beaten and he was thrown in prison before he could write the last set of books in the Bible. And so if you want to be great, if you want to achieve your purpose, there's always going to be a period of struggle. But like with the Walmart situation, don't look at it as an adversity. Don't look at it as a negative. You look at it as an opportunity to see what's underneath, an opportunity to see what your possibilities are. Because if you allow God to do his part, and if he's running your life, eventually the gold will be refined in the fire and you will come out with your full, beautiful self on the other side.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about the furnace of personal development. And on the face of what was shared by Dr. Marcy and Dr. Howell, it seems as if we cannot be fully developed unless we go through circumstances. Dr. Howell listed so many men of the Bible, and every single one of them had a challenge in some way or the other. but we are today reading about them thousands of years later. It means that wherever we need to get to really develop so that we can leave a legacy, then we have to pass through a furnace. And so it is not a one size fit all. We all have different challenges. And that moves me on to my next point that I want to make here. Because when we think about all of those situations and challenges that faced all of these persons, we want to wonder, is personal development or developing yourself personally result in life becoming more complex, or does it become more simpler? And when I think about that, I have so many things running through my mind. Does it make things more complex? Does it make things more simpler? And I want to say it can be either of both. It depends on how we see it. Because let me go to the Bible. King Solomon, who was known to be the wisest man, he wrote in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1 and verse 18, he says, "For in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow." By God. So this is saying to me, if I get more wisdom, I'm going to have more grief. And if I get more knowledge, I'm going to have more sorrow. But not so really. It is how you use it. And this is it. Even in the pursuit of personal development, which is gaining wisdom and seeking for knowledge to master self, can lead to man wickedness and ultimate misery. So that the more that person knows, the more he sees the cause to treat people badly, to not help others, because that person may feel that they're at the top of the ladder, they're developed, they're where they are, I'm it. And that may cause that person to treat others badly. Or the more that person knows, the person may become more callous and have little regard for others. So that's the reason why I say it can be both. It can make life more complex, or it can make life simpler. It depends on how we see. Dr. Howell, what would you say about that?
I would say it depends on who's watching. Because if I run a company and it's only me, I only have to look out for me. When my business grows and I have 5 people, 10 people, 20 people, 100 people under me, I had to grow along the way in order to meet the challenges. And a lot of times when we look at where we started and where we ended up, people who know us might say, "Man, I don't know how you do it. You have 20 people under you and you make it look like it's nothing." I made it look like it's nothing because I rose to the challenge. I rose to the occasion and I developed. I used what I did with one person to help me move to 5 people. Then I used what I learned from 5 people to help me go to 20. And then I used that to get to 100. And so it wasn't a dramatic change. It was a gradual change over time. And I think a lot of times when you come into money, is different than if you grow into money. When you grow into money, your mindset is changing along the way. But if you have a poor mindset and you get $1 million, it goes just as quickly as it came because you are not growing into that. You have not mentally developed into that type of money. And so when people are looking at you, it might seem complex. But because you have matured over a long period of time, it looks different. Let me share a quick picture with you. If you take a frog has the ability to change its temperature over time. If you take a frog and you put it in a pot of water and you let that water increase slowly over a period of time, that frog will keep getting accustomed to that temperature until it boils and dies. But if you take a frog and you throw it into hot water, it would do everything in its power to jump out. And so it's the difference between growing as you mature and suddenly being thrown into experiences that you're not ready for. And so life can become complicated if you grow too fast, or if you subject yourself to situations that you've not grown into. Then if you grow into them, you don't even see the complexity that you're dealing with because you have matured into that frame of thinking.
Wow. I told you we are deep into this topic, and we are sharing some real points. Dr. Howell said it depends on who is looking, who is seeing you. That will tell whether or not that personal development become more complex or simpler. Dr. Marcia.
I love the story that he has given because I always use that story, the frog, and I am agreeing with him. I believe that personal development is a transformative process. I really believe that because when you are developing, what you become is who you allow yourself to be. It's not someone who becomes you. You go through your experience, your story is yours. You craft your own narrative and you represent your own experiences in the authentic way in which you experienced it. So you do not live life as you want it to be, you live life as it is. It is what occurs at any given time that belongs to you. And so your mindset and who you are, in my opinion, determines the complexity or the simplicity of your personal development. And so let's look at complex. I believe that there are times when you are thrown into the deep blue sea, or you are standing outside of a cliff and you are asking God, where are you? You can't hear him. But when you fall off, you fall into his hands because the steps of a righteous man are ordered by God. And those experiences are orchestrated by God and directed to make you become your best self, knowing that you are your greatest assets, you are who you have, and no matter what happens, you will be left with you. And so that complexity, if you don't learn the lessons, then it becomes greater in intensity of complexity because you become very stagnant because you stand at that place and you begin to blame others for your experiences. You constantly look around and in instead of look out and up. Because if you learn the lessons, you see what is in it for you, you gain clarity, you gain perspective, you gain motivation, you become empowered to start all over again or to move in a with a greater illumination in the direction that you ought to go and how you're to get there. But if you constantly blame others and become the victim, it becomes more and more complex. And this complexity leads to helplessness and hopelessness, which later leads to depression and frustration. And you begin to isolate and alienate yourself. And then in the final analysis, you do not achieve much. However, if you use whatever is happening to you as your lesson, as your mirror, as your, what do you call it now, springboard, as your opportunity, as your illumination, as your eyes, then it becomes clearer and clearer as it moves into a more perfect day because you begin to get more and more clarity and you become so resilient and so capable as a resilient person that nothing shakes you. You continue to bounce back. So nothing appears to be complex. Every problem comes already with a solution in your mind.
Wow.
Mm.
Those are powerful comments from both Dr. Marcy and Dr. Howell. And what I hear it all sum up to say is that self-development is complex when it is selfish and self-centered, but it becomes simpler when it is outward focus, looking also for the good of others and not just for yourself. And that is a perfect summing up example of what takes self-development from the complexity of it to a simpler process. So, Dr. Howell, what are the fundamentals then of good personal development? Since we talk about can be simpler, it doesn't have to be complex. What are some of the fundamentals?
Self-awareness to me is one of the most fundamental things that you need in order for personal development. You have to be aware of your blind spots. You have to be aware of your weaknesses, but you cannot fixate on them. What you fixate on are your positives, your strengths, and your abilities. God has given each one of us strengths and abilities. However, we also have blind spots, and those blind spots help to keep us humble, and it helps to keep us focused on God and connected to God. And so without those blind spots, we become bombastic and boastful. And so ever so often you see the great and the mighty fall because they get too wrapped up in their goals, and they get wrapped up in their abilities, and they forget who they're tethered to. Those goals and their abilities come from God. And when you forget about God, eventually you will fall. So self-development is one of the first things that you need. Secondly, self-reflection. You need to make sure, self-awareness first, and then self-reflection. You have to reflect on the past, but once again, you don't fixate on the past. You use the past to learn and move forward. And so you have to be able to reflect on where you were and where you're going, or where you are now and where you're trying to get to. Because a lot of times people, again, they get, and let's use entertainers for an example. They might come from humble beginnings and they forget the people that they are leaving behind. And then when troubles and trials come, the first person they want to get back to is their grandmother, their parent, or someone in that same community that anchored them and kept them stable. And so you have to look back to remember your roots, so you don't get too boastful and too full and pride and filled with pride. But you look at where you are now and its relation to where you're trying to get to. Another thing you have to look for is your support community. I always talk about high value people. You need to surround yourself with people who are equally as driven as you and equally self-searching and self-reflecting as you, so that you all can learn together, you can share together, and you can motivate each other together. A lot of times we don't like to tell people the struggles we're going through, and we end up suffering alone, not knowing that one of our closest friends had just gotten over something similar to that, and they had a way out that could have helped us. So we are our own saboteurs at times. Another thing that you have to look for is a healthy mindset. You need to make sure that your mindset is a growth mindset and is a helping mindset. Because as you said earlier, you have to be able to look outward and upward. When you fixate on what you have to do versus the value that you can give to others, you can get lost in the complexity of life. But if, like Moses, you focus on the people, there are times in that story where God said, hey, let me just wipe out these people, because they're a bunch of people that just fuss and carry on all the time. And Moses is like, no. We're not going to kill them. Give them a second chance. Let me talk to them. So Moses knew that empathy was something that needed to be developed. And so as you search for personal development, you have to make sure that you are looking outwards. There's a law that states you are compensated in life based on the value you provide. And so if you're constantly looking inward, you're not providing value, and that might be why you're not where you need to be yet. Wow. So that, those are things you need to consider as you're moving forward.
Excellent points. And it all wraps around again. These fundamentals continue to show us that for our self-development is about self, but it is also to benefit others. Dr. Marcia.
I'll just add, Dr. Brooks, let me just add that I would add to Dr. Howell a growth mindset. Just let me get my thing going. I think I need some charge. I would just add a growth mindset, warrior's mindset. And the reason why I say that is that when you looked at the story of the three Hebrew boys, we saw in that story that they said to themselves, if God did not save them when they were in their fiery furnace, they said, if God doesn't save us, we will still stand. We're still gonna stand. We're still gonna keep ourselves in shape. We're still gonna make sure that we do not bow or lose sight of our character building. And so you must have a warrior's mindset where you determine beforehand that you are going to bounce back. I also believe that you have to accept, know who you are, and love yourself for who you are. You must be open-minded and very adaptable and flexible when you are going through this furnace of personal development. You must embrace change because change is inevitable. Nothing remains the same. And you must set goals, meaning that if one thing does not work, you want to adjust it to make sure that you alter your mindset, your perspective, your spirit, and also your attitude, that you change accordingly so that you can make sure that you meet the opportunities when they come, and you develop also those skills that needs you to move from one level to the next, because seasons change when you're going through personal development, and it is your furnace. There are highs and there are lows, and if you do not develop that type of resilience in you, you're going to find yourself in trouble. And so I'm adding that to the self-awareness, the self-reflection, the support group, because you must know yourself. And finally, I must say, you must know in whom you have belief, and your faith must be greater than your fear.
Wow. I think we are all beating this first point that says self-awareness. John Maxwell says to grow yourself, you must know yourself. And we cannot grow unless we know. And the other point I want to just add quickly to that is values. What values are you developing yourself with? What are your core values? You need to keep that in front of you while you develop. Also, the beliefs. What are the beliefs that you have about personal development? Um, what are the beliefs that you have about things that happen around you? And your belief is going to also shape how well you develop. Dr. Marcia talked about the visions and the mission and the goals, and Dr. Howell did as well to some extent. And I just add, have that goal, sorry, but try not to put off living while you're learning. Stay in your lane and live at the same time. Try not to put off living while you're developing, while you're learning. And I say this because the story was told of the man who owned the large vineyard in the Bible. And he spent all the time caring about the vineyard. And he started to talk about how he's going to reap and how he's going to pack them into barns, and whatever he's going to do, he's going to build some more barns. And that night, the Lord said, your soul is required. You're not going to have any more time here. And so we want to consider this because many persons spend major time of their life in self-development, and it is right. But remember, while you are learning, while you're developing, don't forget to live. Don't forget to live. And that brings me to my next point. Dr. Marcia alluded to this before. How can we be before we become? And I just want to use Dr. Howell's example of telling a story. And it's not such a story like any of Dr. Howell. I'm just thinking that for years I wanted to become a driver and a good driver. And so I went to the board. Back in Jamaica, we call it the board, where you go to do your driving test. And I will never forget when I went the first time, the man said I failed. It so happened I went back the second time. I don't know, for whatever reason, I met upon the same man. And he said, I failed. And I could not understand why I failed the second time because I thought I did everything right. And I decided, but the second time he asked me, "Where do you work?" And I told him, and he said, "Well, you failed." And I didn't understand that it was an indication that he wanted me to do something to get my license, which I had no intention to do. So I went back the third time because I was determined to pass, to become a driver. And so the third time, I remember there was a girl screaming, and she said, "I've never seen anyone do that kind of parking like that before." She said, "How is she going to get out of that place where she's parked?" Because I did that parking so perfect. And this, it was not the same man this time, but he happily told me that I passed. And so I recognize that, again, we're talking about the furnace. In order to become, you have to most of the time walk through this B process. I want to become a driver and the best driver too. And I had to walk through the process of being that driver before I was able to become the driver I wanted to be. So that is my take on how can we be before we become in personal development. Dr. Marcia.
I'll just ask one question, Dr. Brooks, on this, and I think it will answer it. Have you ever seen anyone who learned to swim on land? I have never.
No.
You have to go into the water. You have to do some strokes. You have to do some paddling. You have to feel as if you're going to drown. You have to float. You have to do so many things before you can learn to swim in water. And so to be, you have to be before you become. And I say, whatever you are now becoming is who you are going to be.
Wow. Powerful. Dr. Howell.
I believe that life can give us situations that make us be before we are ready to be. So, for example, I remember when I was 6 years old, my grandfather used to take me to the ocean every morning at 6 o'clock. And he would swim out with me on his back, half a mile out into the ocean. And there was a sand dune where you could stand up and the water be at waist length. Now, it was his wave, but it was my neck. Well, this particular morning, he decided that he was going to teach me how to swim. And he did not do it the conventional way. He picked me up and threw me into the deep section. Now, I'm a half a mile out. He threw me into the deep section, and I'm drinking water, and I'm like, I'm drowning. He was like, "Stop talking and come to me." And he started to give me directions, move your hands, move your feet. And so as I started to be more like a swimmer, I became a swimmer. And he said, "Look, you either swim or you gonna die. Stop talking, focus on what you need to be, which is a swimmer." And so a lot of times we have to mentally want something so bad that we have an insane focus and fixation on it. So you have to feel it, taste it, and want it so badly that in the morning when you wake up, it's your driver beside God. And in the afternoon, at lunchtime while you're eating, you can taste your dreams coming true. And at night, you're tasting it, you're feeling it, and you're writing about it. And what happens based on research, they say that your subconscious starts to find ways to make it happen. But it's not like what you see on Facebook when people say, "Oh, this year I'm going to get $1 million. This year I'm going to get my dream job and I'm going to get my dream car." No, you can't just say it. You can't just do the affirmations. You have to believe it, and then you have to start putting plans in place. The reasons why a lot of affirmations don't work for people is because they're not saying it often enough, and they're not putting plans into place, and they're not fixating on it so that their mind starts to work on it on the subconscious. And the last thing I want to say is this. The Bible says in Proverbs, an angry king is one of the most dangerous people on the face of the earth because they have all that power. And me as a martial artist, I have 2 different black belts in 2 different martial arts. And I have been accosted by people, and I had to back down because even though they're just trying to show their manhood, what I know will put them in the grave. And so I have to be self-restrained because I know that the power that I wield in my hands and my feet can totally devastate a life. And so I want to finish with this saying. I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. And basically what that means is to be, you have to fill yourself with everything needed and be so dangerous with the knowledge of that being that regardless of what comes your way, you are ready, but you are self-restrained enough. You are disciplined enough to not let out the things that aren't necessary at that time. A warrior does not need to cut up a garden, but he has the ability to flip that switch and do what needs to be done in order to be what he needs to be. So part of self-development is filling yourself with what you need and knowing the power that is within you, but keeping it constrained until the right time when it's needed. Because the Bible says there is a time and place for everything under the sun.
Wow. I am loving this discussion today. I don't know about you, but there are some really potent points, dropping gems here. Sometimes you have to focus and fixate on what you want to be so you can become who you want to be. Oh, that point needs some honey on the top of it right there. There are some powerful notes coming out of here, and when we think about them, they are no joke. This other point that was made, sometimes it actually says that sometimes you have to you have to fill yourself with everything needed, and so fill yourself with the power to become at the right time. At the right time. These are gems that we can't get too much of. And as I know we are going close to the end of our time, so I'm going to move along because our next point is, when we have said all of this, we don't want anyone to believe that there are not challenges in personal development. And so what is the role that challenge play in personal development? And I want to say challenges play a significant role. I could say full stop and down there, because challenges do play a significant role in personal development. As a matter of fact, challenges is like the fire that keeps the furnace going. If you are walking through everything in life hunky-dory, as they would say, then more or less you're not even developing. If everything is sweet and dandy, more or less you're not developing, because it's the heat of the furnace, it's the challenges that causes you to develop more. And so these challenges, I believe, should allow us to pause, to assess, to reassess. And if we need to stay in the furnace, stay there. And if we need to get out of the furnace, get out of it and keep going. And challenges must also keep us, challenges must also help us to look back and see the ones that we have been able to overcome. Sometimes when you can look back and say, oh, I've been there, done that, I've overcome that, this is like a nothing now. then it helps you to move on with greater confidence. But looking back doesn't mean that you need to stay there. Just know that you have mastered that. So if you see it ahead of you at this point in time, then you should be able to get across it. And the final thing I want to say about challenges, challenges come in different forms. Sometimes we see challenges in front of us and we don't even realize that these are challenges. Because a distraction is a challenge, lack of discipline is a challenge, fear of the unknown is a challenge, fear of failure is a challenge, even lack of ambition is a challenge, procrastination is a challenge. And and I say procrastination, and I'm going to say that sometimes procrastination can disguise itself as preparation. So all of these things are challenges, and they come to stop us. They come to alter our course of personal development, but we can move ahead and get over them. Dr. Marcia.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I was just trying to put procrastination can disguise itself as preparation. Powerful, powerful, profound point. I want to say challenges. I am not Dr. Howell, but I just want to tell a small story that will emphasize my point. And it's a personal story that happened more than 21 years ago. And I remember that I was about to go into a taxi and I was just ending high school and just starting college. But when I made an attempt to go into that taxi, I saw a taxi that I had taken the previous evening that owed me the change. He didn't have the change to give me. And so I immediately exited the taxi that I was in and entered that taxi that in my mind was already paid. And years after, which occurs up to today, anytime that taximan sees me, he says, I am still here. He says, I am still here. He's still upset that I stepped out of his taxi. He has changed his taxi, but he has not changed his slang. I am still here. Challenges, when you are at the end of it, can make you confidently become so resilient that you can say unapologetically, I am still here. That is what challenges do. And that is why challenges in themselves are foundations for growth and really the crucial component in personal development. When you have overcome, you can tell your story. When you have overcome, you can share your story. When you have overcome, you can empower. When you have overcome, you find the motivation to continuing on, because you can always say, I am still here. That's it.
Wow.
Mm-mm-mm.
Tell the challenge, I'm still here. Wow. Dr. Howell, you better put on the icing on that cake right there.
All right. Well, let me be illustrative. I believe that all of us are standing in front of a furnace, and it's the furnace of life. And I believe that a challenge is the fire that's in the furnace. And our motivation is the wood that's outside that can pick up that fire. When we pick up that piece of wood and throw it into that challenge and throw it into that furnace and throw it into that fire, that is our ability to show what we're made of, what we have prepared for, what we can become. But a lot of times motivation is not enough, because if you face a challenge and you're not fully prepared and you're not fully committed, what happens is you can run out of wood. And so what you need to do is to make sure that you commit to getting the wood that's needed in order to keep that fire where it needs to be. And so challenges allow you to prove who you are, to prove who you were born in. As Dr. Miles Monroe said, we are already born with everything that we need to be. And not only that, before we were even born, the Bible says God has seen the end of the world. God has seen how everything ends. So even before your mother and your father came together, He had a purpose for you and a plan for your life. And so everything that you need in order to be successful in life is already developed. Is already inside of you as a seed. And I believe what the fire does, those challenges, is allow you to throw those pieces of wood, which is the motivation to keep moving forward, even though something might seem difficult. But when motivation runs out, or when you get discouraged, your commitment to keep going is what we call grit or determination. So motivation gets you started, but your determination keeps you going. And so when you see that you're running out of wood, you go, you study some more, and that studying is the wood that you need to keep throwing in that fire so that you can continue developing the seeds that are within you so that you can blossom into what you need to blossom into.
Wow. I told you about this lunching and learning here today and the gems that are dropping here. Dr. Howell, I actually do say that purpose is my driver and motivation is my fuel. And there are times when the driver is going to run out of fuel, but then there's going to be a decision. A driver can still walk because that determination to keep going is when you run out of motivation. The driver gonna have to get out of that car and decide to continue on the journey, whether he's going to take another vehicle or he's going to start walking. But because there's a greater purpose ahead, that driver knows that purpose. He is the driver, and the motivation is the fuel. And we need that fuel, but there are times when that fuel is going to run out. What are you going to do?
Yes.
Powerful points right there. Powerful points. Dr. Marcia, I'm going to have you talk about 2 or 3 strategies or lessons that person can take away to walk through this furnace of personal development. And as you give those points, give your wrap up. Dr. Howell, then it's going to over to you. 2 or 3 strategies, give your points, and we wrap up.
Well, I'm very, very particular about prioritizing self-care. First of all, you cannot give what you don't have. And there is nobody I know that goes into any war unprepared. You cannot win. And so one of the things that you want to do is to fortify yourself mentally, prepare yourself emotionally, and physically set yourself that you're able to withstand challenges, because challenges come, as Dr. Brooks says, in every shape and form. And one of the greatest challenge in life is the things that we make distract us. And so mentally, if you're focused on what the end of your journey, if you're focused on the destination, if you're focused on what you have in your hand, then the distraction will be minimized, because anything else is just fluff, because you have to live with your reality. Someone else's reality is not your reality. And also, emotionally, you must prepare for the unexpected. So you must go every day expecting the unexpected. That is one of the buffers for setbacks and challenges and disappointment. Don't go out there expecting. As much as you must have a growth mindset, a warrior's mindset, a positive mindset. Positivity doesn't mean that there is no room for negativity and confrontation. Positivity means that despite confrontation, despite frustration, despite negativity, I will stand and I will overcome this, because this is a part of life. Physically, if you build your house on sand, then a really good wind can toss you about. So if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So physically, you must be set firmly in your core values and your beliefs, and you must make them steer you and guide you so that you do not look to the right or to the left. Anything that does not add up or support you, that's what is supposed to be let go. So you're not pulling into yourself what you should be letting go. So you travel light. Don't take any baggage with you. The things that will not help you, don't carry them along. A lot of us, and I am speaking to Many times you speak to the converted. So I speak as a converted. There are many things in my house right now that I do not need. I have accumulated them over the years. But if I sit down and look through, they are just taking up valuable space in my house. And some of those things I don't need. I'm sure Dr. Howell, in his moving at this time, is wondering how he gathered so many things and why he was not using the things that he gathered. I know Dr. Good has a similar experience where she thought that she had downsized and downsized and downsized, but in reality, she still feels that there are things that she could let go. So that's really what I'm saying. The next point I want to make on strategies is that we must be comfortable being uncomfortable. I know I'm saying it in abstracts today, but some of us are too comfortable. We don't appreciate change. We do not budge when we need to change. And we hinder ourselves and set back ourselves because of this fixity in purpose, which is really a purpose where we are in a rocking chair that is taking us nowhere. For you to be growing and developing, you have to be moving from the next point to the next point. It involves movement. It involves you being uncomfortable. It involves you not knowing your head from your toe. It involves you feeling like a really round, a square peg in a round hole. It involves you not knowing what is going to happen next. But there is a certain calm and peace that comes from knowing that whatever happens, I will be the victor. And so you must prepare to be uncomfortable because that is what will guide you. The final point I want to make is this: personal development needs you. You cannot be outside of your development and growth. You cannot be outside of your furnace. You have to be in the heart of it. What you need to do in that furnace is that you need to joust the embers and keep them burning at your pace. So you must manage and control your emotions, your circumstances, and your situations. You must create, cultivate, and maintain coping mechanisms so that as you go out and grow up, you grow also inward. So you are able to all times to nurture yourself, to empower yourself, and to speak life over yourself.
Wow, what a powerful summation of the strategies and what you can do to ensure that you stay in that furnace of personal development for 2024. Dr. Howell, sum up your section for me.
Yeah, one of the things I want to say is you do not see obstacles as barriers in your life. See them as lessons and teachers in your life. So view them from a positive mindset because God has something to reveal within you. The next thing I want to say is appreciate the journey versus appreciating the outcome. A lot of times people are like, I'm not going to be happy until XYZ. I'm not going to relax until XYZ. And then you die right after XYZ. So you never really got a chance to enjoy your life. So the journey is where you are developing. Enjoy every single thing in the journey. And as we tell people in life coaching, have small goals and celebrate each one of those small goals along the way. You don't wait till the end to be happy. You have to already see yourself finished and enjoy the process of getting there. Now, I want to tell two stories, and I'll be quick because the time is running out. I remember Buster Douglas had to fight Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson had never lost a fight, and Buster Douglas went in as the underdog. But what he did not know is that Mike Tyson had a relationship problem. Robin Givens was giving him a hard time, and he was not focusing on his A game. And you know what? A lot of people lost money on that fight because Buster Douglas knocked down Mike Tyson. And he knocked him down not because he was necessarily better, but it was his time. And it was his time because he was prepared. So nothing beats preparation. And like I said before, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. You have to have all the preparation needed. You can't waste time. You can't be bombastic and thinking that I'm the best out there, because just like Goliath and just like Mike Tyson, they lost to people who weren't as good as them because of a prideful disposition. And secondly, you got to learn to let things go. And let me just tell you a quick story. There were two monks walking down the pathway, and they got to a passing, and they had to go across the river. And when they got to the shallowest part of the river where they normally crossed, there was a woman there. And the woman said, "Please, sir, I just got this new outfit. Can I get on one of your backs and y'all take me across the water?" And the first monk said, "No, we're not allowed to touch women at all." The second monk said, "You know what? I'll put you on my back." So he put the woman on his back and he went across the water, and she got across dry. He put the lady down. She went along her way, and he and the guy and the other monk were walking, but he noticed that the first monk wasn't talking to him like he was before. And he was like, "Brother, what is wrong?" He was like, "I don't believe that you actually picked that woman up and took her on your back." And he said to his friend, "I put that woman down 2 miles ago, but you still have her up in your head." And so the lesson to be told is this: there are a lot of times we carry baggage in our minds. We need to put it down like the second monk and stop keeping stuff in our minds and carrying it on. That first monk didn't even lift the woman up, but he was still thinking about that woman 2 miles down the street. The guy that helped out the woman, he put her down, went along his business, forgot even about the woman. This man's still upset. And so one of the lessons you need to learn about life is put that foolishness down so that you can move forward. There's so much more you can do if you can free your mind of all the negativity.
Wow. Put that down. I like the part of it, Dr. Howell. Start thinking about it even before you get there. And its negativity. Ladies and gentlemen, this was such a powerful and introspective lunch and learn. Dr. Marcia is sipping something from her cup right there. I today I will be having some chicken soup because of the weather. But did you actually know that you can peel a cucumber, whichever one you use, whether the one that is wrapped or the one that is loosed, and you can dice them very small. And when your soup is all done, you can pour that cucumber in your chicken soup, that raw cucumber in your chicken soup right there. Because cucumber has I'm not a doctor, please, but cucumber has so many great benefits. As a matter of fact, it's a great thing for hydration. It helps your bone health, the doctors say. The doctors say it has good minerals for cardiovascular health. It helps with things like inflammation. If you go and read it up from what the doctor says, cucumber is good. Put a little cucumber in your chicken soup when you're done making that chicken soup, and especially now that we're having this severe weather across the entire United States. Get some chicken soup and grab a seat and just relax and enjoy. That's how I want to end today. An intersection is always a point of decision. When you come to an intersection, it calls for you to make a decision. Are you going to go left or are you going to go right? But I want, when you're ready to make that decision, remember one thing. I started this way saying this. God says, I know the plans I have for you. Plans to prosper you, plans to give you hope and a bright future. Pause for a moment at that intersection and consult him for your next step. And remember, he has set human in this world to help you. So don't discount the time that you can invest in mentorship, coaching, and training. And that's what we do. We mentor, we coach, we train. And we are here to help you to walk that journey of life. When you have a guide, a navigator, someone who can walk beside you and help to hold your hand, I believe that you will be in a better position to navigate the storms that are ahead. That is how we close today. Go ahead and go get your tea or your chicken soup Relax and think about the next few days. And if you need to connect with us for yourself or your team, I'm Dr. Janice Brooks. My website is drjanicebrooks.com. Send me a message from there or connect with me on any of the major social media. Dr. Marcia, your contact information.
So my contact information is drtpmotivate2.com. Remember to subscribe to my newsletter and also my blog, and make sure you get a copy of my latest book, A Leader Like You, to start the conversation of personal development. I can also be found on my handles of Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Thank you so much for joining us for lunch. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you so much. Dr. Howell, your handle.
Yes, my website is sigfriedhowell.com, and my email address is drsigfriedhowell@gmail.com, and you can find me on Facebook at Siegfried Howell.
Excellent. Thank you
And
so
your book that you're promoting this
Oh
week?
yes,
Doctor.
I started to pack my books. You said that I'm moving, but one of my books, let me pick this one here. The Peace Method to Love and Happiness. It can be found on Amazon. The Peace Method to Love and Happiness. If you want to know how to get to the 3 to 4 levels of happiness, then pick up this book on Amazon. You will not be disappointed at all.
excellent. Thank you so much to my wonderful co-host, Dr. Howell and Dr. Marcia, as we come here each Friday and also on Tuesday mornings on the LinkedIn Audio Live to share with you on a topic that we believe is not just relevant but critical to your growth and development. God says no man lights a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it gives light to the world. And that's what we're seeking to do with our own lives, to ensure that what he has given us, we give back to others as he says. I want to wish you all an excellent rest of your day, whether you are in New York or across Delaware, or you're down in Florida, which is not having any sun at this time. Wherever you are across the country, I want you to be safe and warm and take good care of yourself and your family. Have a great, great, great weekend. Bye-bye all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.